design of this abutment. Here, my abutment, and I can individually shape it. And then the remaining part, then what happens is that we finalize the editing. What we use, we clean the surface of the Emax, we acid etch it for 20 seconds and silanate it. And we repeat the same thing within the inside of this crown, etch, silanate, and simply we wrap the abutment with a Teflon band while placing it into the socket so that when we will be bonding the crown over the abutment, I don't see any excess all over the place. Once we cement it, we unscrew it, we clean the margins outside. Now it's ready to be placed in. Just after that, Mürvet, one of our sweet associates, she is placing a composite over here, and you can see this space has been easily closed with a composite. So with that, when I bring it back, this is how we started, and this is the day of insertion. So do I have to panic? No, I just need to wait because there is mature tissue behind it. So let's see what happens here. This is my implant, and when I look at the bone levels, especially the crestal bone, I can see that this part will be so easily filled in the near future. So as this peak will fill up the space between the centrals. And after that, in 1 week, look at the change here. It's just filling up the space. And in like 3 weeks, this is the final result. So if we do the biology right, if we do the denture, the prosthesis right, these are prone to be very, very successful cases. Now, the last patient, conventional custom design. What happens here is that I didn't know the patient. The patient had been treated by an orthodontist. She had congenitally missing laterals, very sweet patient, and simple enough, this is after 18 months, and this is when the patient was referred to me. So the canines were moved out bodily to open space for the implant placement. And I cannot see any way other than going without the surgical guide here because it guides you so precisely that you place the implant exactly to where you want, not mesiodistally, but buccolingually as well. So this is my first mock-up. I cannot make anything here when she has braces except for the starting point of any aesthetic case. So what is the starting point of any aesthetic case? It's the incisal edge position. So I add some flowable there just to know where I'm starting from. And from here on, this is the part I need to take care with the implant and the prosthesis. Okay, so what do we do now? This is our patient when the braces were out, and we can see that doesn't look nice at this stage, but at least we know where we are. So we have the space, very narrow space actually, and when we see the cone beam, we can see both the area where we'll be placing the implant is narrow, so we need very delicate surgery there, and I need to balance everything in terms of the aesthetic outcome. So in the lab, we are designing the case with the wax up. Hilal is using my incisal edge position as a reference and then building up rest with the wax. And after that stage, we immediately scan the model. Why? Just simple enough to print a 3D tray for us to make the impression. This is Luxatem, we're loading it. The tray is so rigid that when I place the APT in the patient's mouth, it comes so fresh, especially in the gingival embrasures, that it makes my life and the way the patient understands the case becomes very, very easy. There is something wrong here. It looks like wrong. What about this area? Why all the margins were perfect, but the laterals were not? It's simply because of this depression here. We didn't position the crown or the wax up inclining out, but we uprighted the root so the tooth becomes into its correct position. So what I do here is that I try to clean up the excess in that zone, and when I finish it, this is what I see. But it has a nice contact with the soft tissue, but there's a deficiency here. So how do I cover it up? Simply with a pink composite. So this is what I would ask from my surgeon to fill up besides placing the implant, so that the design that I thought to deliver to the patient would be perfectly the way I want it to be. So after this is what we see. The color is different because we'll be doing very, very thin veneers over the centrals. This is just a try-in. Now with the pink, so the patient can have a rough idea on what's going on. And in this case, what happens is that we immediately make a Maryland bridge. So this is something interesting for you to think about, because when we were working on this case with Hilal, we thought about the two options. One, what if we cannot load this case? If we cannot immediately load it, we'll use this as a Maryland bridge. We'll just fill up the inside and just position it over the natural tooth. And if we can load the implant, it's going to be a different story. So again, with the help of Louis, we're designing the M-guide. M-guide comes back to the chair side, but how they send the MIS, how they send you the guide is beautiful, because they don't only send you the guide itself, but they send you the stereolytic model of the existing mouth. So you almost have the most accurate impression in your hand just before you start anything. So with this, we start surgery. Eric comes on into the stage. He starts taking out his big chunk of soft tissue, connective tissue grafts, using the drill, positioning creating the site. However, this part is very critical. So if we take too much bone out, we'll be losing a lot of precious material to hold our implant. So at this stage, my dearest Junaid comes into the stage, and they enjoyed this surgery so much working together that he goes in with a condenser. So when you expand the bone with a condenser, there's no way you're losing that precious bone. And after that, simply the implants will be positioned, and the stability of this implant limit will be very, very strong. So after this is completed, we're coming to the provisional part. We'll be immediately loading this case. And how do we go with this? Once we place the cylinder to make our provisional, the Maryland bridge Hilal prepared for me will be used exactly at that spot. What do? We will open up the inside of this Maryland bridge. We will position the wings to the adjacent tooth, which will stabilize it exactly at where it should be. And once this is done, what we have to do is simply capture that provisional. So when we capture this and when we take it out, we will simply have this connection. It is the correct position of the crown with the correct position of the implant. However, when we look at from the side, the missing part, which is here, has to be filled. So one part has to be filled by us in the Prostho section, and the other side has to be filled out by the surgeon by placing more connective tissue grafts to balance it. So thanks God we have this guide of the wax up to start with, so we knew where we were going from the beginning. Eric is placing the soft tissue grafts now according to our design. And after this, simply, this is what we do with my dearest Hilal. This is something very funny. All of a sudden it came to our mind that we have to use this model for somehow. And that made our life so easy. So what Hilal is doing now is you can see the two pieces here. And through that two pieces, he's trying to seat this over the stereolithic model. It already fits. So once this is done, he will take a burr and he will do guided, I wouldn't say surgery, but guided drilling in the lab so that he will go through that and open a hole in that model itself. So that we will be using, you can see inside out, and that we can use easily to keep that impression post analog in position so that once we log it in here and we block it, this is what we will be getting. It's as if we took the analog, placed it into a stone model, but we didn't waste a minute. This is what we're doing while the patient is having surgery the next door. So this is, again, a same day happening, what I'm trying to explain to you. So in that, once we completed all these, simply we go to the next stage, and this is the captured one, and this is how we fixed it on the model, but with the right contours now. And then this is the contour we wanted to create. And simple enough, we're just screwing it in at the day of surgery. This is in, the second one is in, so everything is nice and quiet. We had the right amount of bone, we had the right amount of soft tissue, and correctly designed provisionals, which I think is one of the most important things for you to design everything from day one. Okay, in 12 weeks, we're getting better healing, and after that 12 weeks, this is when we uncover the screw. So we can see beautiful healing here, the shape of the soft tissue, the socket itself, and we will be making the impression. So how do we make it? Once we unscrew the healing abutment, we place the impression copings and fill it up with composite, and the impression posts will be taken out with that composite. So what happens here is that it takes all the shape, transfers all the shape of the socket into the laboratory. So here we can see the space we created with that, and simple enough, this is what we missed before. We were missing the soft tissue, and this is what we were having right after we're done. So this is the gain we have, which is a very positive thing, and now Hilal is working with the abutments. So what he does is he uses the Emax MO to create the abutment, but what about the design of this abutment? Here, we already created. Thanks to MIS, thanks to the design we created by copying the root, but the top part is a little tricky. So in this prosthetic phase, something I requested from Hilal was to just build it up almost to the shape of the normal crown. Why? Simple enough, I will use my very classic technique that I use with my veneers all the time, and this is, I will be prepping through the APT. So once the copings were in the mouth, the abutments are in the mouth, I place my final design in a tray, place some Luxatem, place it in the mouth, and when I and the patient agrees with the final design, simply we start prepping through the tooth, through the APT, not only the teeth, but also the abutment itself. So I will be getting a very precise depth for the abutment. What I do here, little different, is that I prep all the teeth with 0.3 millimeters of a depth cutter, whereas the abutments get 0.5 millimeters. Why? Because after my preparation, which we see it's completely minimally invasive, what happens is that still there is a slight color difference between the original tooth and the abutment itself. So Hilal will go ahead and layer this with a very thin layer of porcelain just to make these two colors match perfectly. And then the thing is so easy. You make your veneers with the same thickness all over in that precisely prepared tooth structure, which you can see here. Classical color transfer impressions, and this is what now we do in the lab. Acid etch, 20 seconds Emax. We apply silane, monobond plas, block out the wax, apply the multi-link abutment cement, light cure it, do the oxygen inhibiting layer, and you receive a beautiful copying with the screw on it, which is screwable for us. Here, what he did over the abutment that I was mentioning to you, he layered it with the power dentin A2 and power incisal just to make it look exactly alike with the shape and color of the adjacent teeth. On top of that, when it's done, he does his wax up and he does his micro layering technique. So Hilal is not an amazingly talented ceramist. He's a sweetheart, and I think there's, in my knowledge, nobody in the world documenting these cases better. So I would like to thank him again for his time that he puts into, besides his amazing work, into documenting these things, so we all share it together. And then these are the veneers done over the abutments, and now we can see the abutment and the veneer outside with the beautiful surface texture. This was how I started. That was our base point to start our mock-up, and this is what Hilal finishes with the porcelain. So this is the look from the lips, half smile, full smile, and bigger smile. And with that, when we look at the final restorations, we see a beautiful integration of white and pink. Every space is filled in the way we want it to be. The design of this porcelain is the way we want it to be. But all this happened just because we planned it from day one. So at the end, this is a very, very happy patient and a very happy dentist myself, not only finishing this case like this, but having amazing friends and team like that. So you heard me many times as maybe Galip Gürel, but always in every case, I had an amazing team working with me. So I cannot thank them enough. I cannot thank you enough for being with me today here. Thank you so much.